So, the iPhone 10 may be seeing a possible cancellation in its production. So, we're going to be looking at the economics behind that and also an introduction of a new segment in this episode of Gateway to Geekdom. Well, hello again, viewer. Andrew, aka War Doctor, coming at you again with another video, and it has been a long time coming. Without going into very much detail, there's been a lot of life happening at the end of January. Had to take some time off from work to deal with some family matters. But now that that is behind us, and there is a new era of recording before us, let's go ahead and get right into the first segment of this video. Okay, so as said in the intro, there's a lot of stir about a possible, well, about two different things. A possible price cut coming in 2018 about the iPhone 10. So if you've been holding off about upgrading if you're an iPhone user, if you've been holding off about upgrading your phone to an iPhone 10, your patience just may be just about to pay off. There is a couple of different headlines saying that there's going to be a price cut of the iPhone 10. But then there's also a couple of other headlines I've read into as well about the iPhone 10 being canceled as well, just outright. This price cut was brought to my attention about a headline that came up in Google Chrome that said a possible iPhone X price cut. Now, I figured, now I'm going to get to this point later in the video, that a $1,000 price point seemed a little bit too lofty for a phone. So here in this headline that we have, according to Digital Trends, that is the iPhone X too expensive for you? Rumored price cut may change that. And they go to reference a couple of other people that say that a website known for its hit and miss rumors, Digital Times Reports, says that a future price cut as certain, or don't take any. So it's a hit or miss rumor, so a future price cut may not be certain, but it is rumored to go around. Now, the economics behind this is going to be just a little bit later. This paragraph right here states that the iPhone 10 starts at $1,000, but the flagship phone can cost a lot more depending on the amount of storage it contains. How much will Apple cut the price? Digital Times rumor doesn't go into any detail, and it should come to pass. We shouldn't expect the iPhone 10 suddenly to challenge the OnePlus 5T, which retails for about $500, and more on that on this video later. The report's wording suggests that the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, which suffered from poor sales due to anticipation for the iPhone X, may also fall in price as well. This is kind of interesting because more people who saw the press release and announcement for the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 10 opted more for the iPhone 8 because it was a little bit more reasonable in their price points. Well, in their budget. Now, there is also this headline as well. Wild Report says iPhone X price may drop come early 2018. And it says Apple's iPhone X is Apple's best iPhone ever, but it's also very expensive. iPhone ever made. A news comes from Digital Times reports that largely flew under the radar on Friday ahead of the holidays, but was picked up by the Motley Fool. Digital Times says that the iPhone X shipments will reach 30 to 35 million under its first quarter of the year, and will stay flat or drop slightly in the first quarter of 2018, according to sources in the semiconductor packaging and testing industry. A Bloomberg report on Monday painted a similar picture. Various analysts said that Apple is dropping orders with Asian suppliers following lackluster iPhone X demands over the holidays. So, possible price cuts, yes, but here is the real big headline that is coming up like right now. Alright, so this is according to Forbes magazine, and they say, now, this was not just brought to my attention uh, alone, but a tech YouTuber that I like watching as well, that goes by the name of Lou on the channel Unbox Therapy, he also brought this to my attention as well, and I wanted to dig a little bit further into it. And he also put this same Forbes article on his video as well about a possible iPhone X cancellation. Now, it's not to say that they're going to just outright stop supporting it. However, the lack of demand for this particular product is not holding up light to what Apple was hoping it was going to do. Now, with that being said, it's still going to be supported, but it may be the first time that Apple is going to cut production of a particular phone before revealing a new product to the scene in their next big phone reveal as well. Go ahead and look at this report a little bit further. A new report obtained by Apple Insider claimed KGI Securities analyst Ming-Chin Ko, a Chinese source, says disappointing sales of the iPhone X will lead to the cancellation of the model, with production ceasing in the summer. This will be the first time Apple has canceled an iPhone model just after one generation since the iPhone 5C in 2014. Now, the same Chinese source later had to backtrack a little bit, saying that maybe not, but I guess time was going to tell for this one as well. The news also follows a new survey from Cohen that claims that interest in new iPhones has hit a historic low. That said, it's all gloom and doom. While the iPhone X will not bring Apple the much anticipated sales super cycle, Ko states that Apple will see modest 5% growth in the first half of 2018. This comes from Apple having 3 premium models, iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and iPhone 10, on sale for the first time. So to counteract the poor sales of the 10, the 8 and 8 Plus will kind of bring the sales up to where Apple needs it, but where they need it, not where they were hoping it was going to get to. According to Newsweek, another tech article saying that is Apple about to cancel the iPhone X? Poor sales mean device faces end of life in single air quotations. When Apple CEO Tim Cook unveiled the iPhone X last September, he said the $999 device would set the path for technology for the next decade. Rumors steaming about Apple's analysis suggests reductions in orders means that iPhone X production cease as early as this summer would be a first time Apple has continued the iPhone before unveiling a new model. And they said this will mark the first time that Apple has not retained an iPhone released the previous year, even though the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus are likely to continue to be sold. Apple has not responded to a request or comments from Newsweek and does not typically answer press queries relating to speculation on products. Okay, so with all of that being said, first we're going to address the price cut as well, like more of the economic side. Why exactly does stores do a price cut for particular products as well? Well, there's going to be a few reasons, and according to BizFluent, these are a few reasons that companies do so. The headlines you can see here is competition, seasonal items, poor sales, business closure, and lost leaders. Now, there's a couple different reasons, big reasons, that Apple is probably cutting the iPhone X, if at all, come later on in 2018. Probably competition being one, and we'll probably name off a few later, and one that's probably even a little surprising to the iPhone X, and then also poor sales. Competition would include market competition that can compel business to reduce product prices to increase sales if a business must compete with other businesses that offer identical products and cannot utilize other competitive advantages such as location or superior service, it may have to resort to lower pricing to remain competitive. And then here is another one, poor sales. A product with low sales takes up retail space and minimizes the ability of business to recoup its investments in the products. In order to clear out space for products more attractive to customers, a business may reduce selling prices to encourage bargain shoppers to buy. This also helps business minimize losses and products with low consumer demand. So those are just a couple of reasons as well that the iPhone X probably will be cut down. And now, according to marketplace.com, they list off not only just like merchandise, but they start off with the example of food. And let's be honest, we throw away a lot of food in this country. It's pretty crazy. But when it comes to actual merchandise, basically it's the same repeating story again, but well, it's the same reasons again, but told a little bit more in a story like sense. Now they use the example of like Target. They say Target has a pretty good schedule of how long the product is going to be sitting on the shelf before it gets discontinued, and then also if it's unsold from there, they're likely to liquidate it, in some cases donate it, or sell on one of these discount stores like TJ Maxx or Marshalls. So if Apple can't sell it at their stores, they'll probably find another way to sell it at a different place as well. But it not only just stops there, they also have a unsold merchandise is to not have much of it in the first place. So some stores made like, now maybe this will probably refer to the 10. I don't know exactly if this exactly refers to the 10. There may be an a cut down in so many quantities and where a iPhone X will be shipped to a particular store, if not an Apple store, causing the longevity of the shelf space to be reduced, because there's less of a product, there's more of an incentive to buy it. But if there's much of a product, there isn't much incentive to buy it because it's so common. Alright, I think one of the biggest reasons why the iPhone X may not be doing as well as it is probably because Apple is not the only person on the block offering premium phones anymore. I mean, sure, 10 years ago you may have to settle with what you got, but now in the 10 years since the first iPhone was introduced, I mean, you are getting a lot more premium stuff for your buck. Now if you're looking for a iPhone X alternative, of course you got stuff like the Galaxy Note 8, or let's also take a look at the Razer phone. The Note 8 was $960, still really spendy, but is it justifiable? I guess that's more on what you're looking for in a phone. The Razer phone, this is $700 right up front. How about the next example? The OnePlus 5T, as mentioned in one of the articles mentioned earlier in the videos. The 6 gig of RAM and 64 gigs of storage, which will get a lot of people by, that is $500, which is half the price of an iPhone X. And then there's also the LG V30, a 64 gig model on T-Mobile, is about $675. So still pretty spendy, but from what I have seen about videos about this particular phone, it's very reasonable. It's very nice. Now again, this all varies from what you're looking for in a phone. But then the last competitor against the iPhone X is iPhone's very own iPhone 8, as mentioned also earlier in the video. This one, $800. About, it's much cheaper than the Galaxy S8, and if you still want to stay within Apple's services, the iPhone 8 seems a lot more reasonable path to go. You still get all the stuff that you want out of an iPhone, and it's not that much of a different step between the 7 and now the 8. So here's a few things that I do want to get out of the way. I'm not hoping that Apple fails at all. They are a very good competitor. They make very premium smartphones and other devices as well. However, there are a few things that they, and not only they, but the rest of the tech industry can learn from this iPhone 10 debacle if everything, as mentioned in the price cuts and the production cancellation, is true. First of all, if you're going to charge $1,000, make absolutely sure that your price is justified. Make sure that there's about $1,000 worth of use going into a pocket computer that makes phone calls. Now, you can't necessarily, let's go right into my second point. Don't completely rely on your brand name to sell your products. Now, this can go with anything. It can be with Apple's, it can be with Samsung, it can be nothing tech related, it can be like a clothesline or anything. Don't merely rely on just a brand name just to sell your products if the price or a price tag to sell your products on your brand name if you're not going to get that sort of use out of it as well. And also, always make sure that you have a read on the competing market. Again, Apple, you're not the only people on the block making phones out there. You do have the top spots in the phone market, which is very, very well done on your part, but you're not the only one. You can be able to still get a lot of phone what a common person needs for way, way less than, of course, $1,000. And I keep hitting that $1,000 price point over and over again because, yeah, it can be a little bit with, it's not very justifiable. What ties into the last point, to always find new and compelling ways to sell your products. Now, with the iPhone 10, it is a very cool product with the Face ID recognition to unlock your phone. And then the Animojis are cool, but that necessarily shouldn't be the basis of your phone. It should offer a lot more for what you're paying for it. Now, hopefully, there could be a price cut, and hopefully if you haven't upgraded your phone quite yet to the iPhone 10 from, say, your 6 Plus or your 7 or 7 Plus, you could possibly do so. And if you want to, and if you're gonna see yourself getting as much what you need out of that phone, then fantastic. All I'm saying is the price is kind of what's killing the iPhone X, and I think we have reached the absolute pinnacle of how much a phone of that caliber can actually be charged for. Alright, time for the new segment. I've been wanting to do something like this for a while now, but now I can finally be able to do it. And I figured this would probably be the best way to be able to debut this sort of, to be able to hit this off, because when I saw this particular piece of work, well, before, let me back up. What this exactly is to put people's creativity on display, whether it be a piece of fan art or an interesting post that maybe most of us have not, or putting stuff into a different light that most of us may not have thought about beforehand. Now, this particular post comes from an application or a social media that I'm a part of that is called Zelda Amino, like amino acids, but it is a social media platform. On Zelda Amino, there's a bunch of people who like to post Zelda-related content that is fan art, fan fictions, theories, just basic, all sorts of different stuff as well. And I wanted to show off this piece of fan art here. Now, before I also show it off, I just do want to note that I am a very big sucker for Midna fan art, whether it be her imp form or her true form especially. And so this is the piece of art right here. A very special thanks to Neun. I'm very sorry, man, if I am mispronouncing your name, but Neun. He did this painting of Minda's true form right here. And let's just take a minute to admire this. Now, when I asked him, or her, I never found out what you are. I'm so sorry. So, when I asked about what exactly he was very most proud of about this piece, he was very appreciative, or he was most proud of the way Midna turned out with all her detail. And I really do admire the detail as well. He also wanted to point out about all the twilight squiggles around the cape too. And this kind of light blue and dark blue shading is extremely well done as well. And the contrast between the blue and this subtle orange shades, as well as some other shades of like orangish and what looks like maroons or reds as well, to complement her hair and her skin and all her attire. Is just extremely well done. So very well done. But he doesn't just start there. He said, if this could be featured, I'm very happy because I worked super hard on this. Well, it shows. And he probably edited later. Thank you for featuring me. You deserved it. So hi there, folks. So I finished this Minda today, and I thought I'd show you all my finished piece and the steps I took to get there. Now, initially, I wasn't going to be a part of Art Nuevo, but I decided to go with it. My initial composition wasn't working anyways. Onwards, starting with the laydown, the rough sketch, and rough anatomy. So here he is, kind of doing his piece there with the anatomy to begin with, and then, as you can see, I was scribbling underneath the line art. When drawing, you don't want to focus too much on the anatomy at first. The first thing you want to do is map out your pose and to get a general flow of it. As you can see in this image, my scribbles underneath led to Minda's anatomy slowly coming together. A helpful thing to keep in mind when drawing is the line of action. If you look slowly at my drawing, you can see Minda's body is moving in the shape of an S. The S curve in art helps make your pose look more visually interesting and dynamic. A very well thought out pose, or thought in general. I agree. Also, her shoulders, hips, and her face are all facing opposite directions. This little technique is also called contrast passo. Feel free probably meant to say to Google it, but it helps tremendously in art. Basically, it's making your shoulders, hips, and face in opposite directions. It's kind of like a zigzag on the body. Anyways, moving on. Mapping out the anatomy. So we have from this second part, from this first part here. And you can see he flipped it over to get more of a better sense of direction with this one. And as you can see, once I had the flow of Minda's pose down, I began to put the anatomy on top of her while retaining her flow's gesture of her pose. You can see that I do not use straight lines when drawing the body. Instead, my lines are slightly curved in a lot of areas. This helps make your art feel more alive and visually appealing. Remember to always use reference when you're starting out. A tip when drawing women, their hips are the same width as their shoulders. Onwards. The sketch is done. Now we add more flow into the composition and making her clothes flow with her. So you can see the clothes are starting to come together as well. And by now it is mostly done. I went back and fixed her anatomy at the sketch stage before lining her. For example, her waist was too short and her hips were too big. I then added her clothes. When drawing clothes, you should always draw the body underneath first so you can figure out where the folds of the clothes fall. Folds are not random. Folds stem from tension points. Tension is where the fabric is pinched and how it holds flow from that pinched spot. For example, Minda's skirt. The belt pinched her skirt from the top and her legs moved the fabric so it flowed downward. So in this piece, I fixed that and began to add the background. And oh my gosh, this background must have taken forever because there's just so much detail to it. And Minda's true form is coming together very, very nicely. So let's continue to what he also said as well. For the background, I drew a lot of inspiration from Alpha Muka's work. He's a famous artist, and for good reason. So I roughly penned in the background and got a general composition down. In the little circles and the big circle, it was the design of the back of Minda's cloak that I drew in. I also added the mirror of Twilight behind Minda, though you can't see it due to her cape blocking most of it out. Regardless, I took a lot of symbols that signified Minda and added them into the artwork as I expected from Art Nuevo. With my background now done, I moved on to lining. And there is a lot to outline. Good job again with this, by the way. It's so done. That was so tedious to line art, I bet. But the end result was worth it. As you can see, I kept the thicker lines on Minda and the thinner lines in the background. I didn't want everything to be on the same width because I wanted Minda to be the main focus, not the background. Now adding the flat colors. So now we have the flat colors. Nothing much to say here other than I chose my own color scheme. I wanted this piece to be warm hued, so Minda's back took on a purple hue as did her blue skin. The teal of her cape helps her pop out the comparison. It's cool colored while everything else is warm, as very obviously exampled with the final piece. When choosing a palette, you need to figure out if your piece is going to be warm or cold colored. It helps with unifying the piece. Never shape and highlight with darker colors of the same color. The color of your light source will influence how your piece will look in the end. For this piece, my light source was warm reddish colors, as you will see. Beginning to paint, my light source was coming from the left, so everything close to the light source was bright, while everything moving away from the light source was dark. Interesting. I didn't even see the light source to begin with, but now that you mention it, it does make a lot more difference. This is some more detail right here. By now, I finished Minda. All that remained was the background. Now all their colors have a reddish tint to them, and the color of my light source. Now the art is finished, and there we have the final product. The backgrounds mirrored the light's color scheme. Minda's dark colors contrasted nicely with the pinks and yellows. It also looks like a sunset. Yeah, it does look like a sunset. That's very, very, very cool. It reminds me of the beginning of Twilight Princess when he says, "Do you ever feel a slight sadness when the sun begins to set?" Or something along those lines. That's what it kind of reminds me of. Very well done. Also added a halo around her head since her pale skin was getting lost in the bright background. And there you have it. These steps took to making this artwork. I hope you all enjoyed. And he's also taking commissions too. So that is pretty cool. I will have to get something commissioned by this person. It is fantastically well done. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of Gateway to Geekdom. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. If you didn't enjoy, you also know what to do. Be sure to share with whoever you think will enjoy it. And until the next video, stay geeky.